In today's episode of Dave's Food Journey, we'll be heading to Shimonoseki, the capital city of Yamaguchi Prefecture, where we'll try some local specialties, including pufferfish, whale, Pacific Saury, Japanese blue swimmer crab, Kawara Soba, and much more. We'll also be heading to Karato Fish Market, which is home to what I consider Japan's most fun and most delicious sushi experience. Picking your own huge sushi and enjoying them under the palm trees. I hope you're ready for another delicious adventure because our Shimonoseki food tour begins right now. After dropping our stuff off at the hotel, we headed towards Karato Fish Market. Right before the market, along the boardwalk, is a building with several restaurants, and we decided to have some conveyor belt sushi at Kaiten Karato Ichiba Sushi. After a quick 10-minute wait, we were seated with a tablet that included English, so ordering was as easy as possible. I would consider myself an expert in conveyor belt sushi at this point, and I have to say the quality looked excellent. We started off with the akami, which had an enormous thick slice. The texture was noticeably more dense, and it had less moisture, which made it more flavorful and satisfying to eat. To this day, I still think this is the best piece of akami I've ever eaten. Next up was the salmon belly, which had some beautiful marbling. These pieces were insanely rich, tender, and flavorful. The tobiko was sweet and savory, with its unique crunchy and popping texture. Next up was the buri belly, which had a similar richness to the salmon belly, except with a much more firm texture. Yellowtail always has a firm initial texture, but the more you chew it, the more delicious it becomes. I also ordered some fried tentacles, which were hot and crispy with delicious fried squid flavor. A nice contrast to all the sushi. After that, we had some yari ika, or big fin reef squid, which was extremely dense and rich with a mild sweet flavor. One of my favorite cuts of sushi is engawa, which is the pectoral fin muscle of flatfish. It has an extremely unique kind of elasticy texture, but with a lot of richness and flavor as well. It's even better when brushed with a sweet soy sauce and torched. As always, the premium tuna belly was maximum tender, rich, and flavorful. This one was loaded with wasabi, which added a nice contrast to the extreme richness. Since pufferfish and whale are both specialties of Yamaguchi Prefecture, I decided to try them in sushi form. First up was the pufferfish, which came with some grated chili radish and green onions. The texture was tougher than any of the other fish for sure, and there wasn't any real richness or flavor. Overall, just very mild, with a very firm texture, but not bad at all. It also came with some thin slices of skin, which were rubbery and mild in flavor. Again, nothing bad, but nothing special either. Next up was the whale, which came with a very unique spotted pattern. It looked like half meat, half fat, and was garnished with fresh grated ginger. As soon as I started chewing, I thought the texture was quite similar to silver skin on a steak. It was kind of gristly, but your teeth couldn't really go through it either. And the flavor was somewhere between aged beef and fish oil, and not in a good way. The more I chewed, the more my mouth filled up with this taste, but I couldn't swallow it because no matter how much I chewed the whale, it didn't break up into smaller pieces. It was a real battle to get this one down, to be honest. Nothing about this piece of sushi was pleasant. The flavor was bad, the texture was borderline inedible, and the appearance really didn't look appetizing in my opinion. This now holds the record as the #1 worst piece of sushi I've ever eaten, dethroning the previous long-reigning firefly squid from Kura Sushi. After that, I had a couple pieces of strongly flavored sour and salty mackerel sushi to get the taste out of my mouth. But overall, it was a very nice sushi lunch. I felt like the quality was very good, much higher than your standard chains in the same price range. The total came to 66.55 Japanese yen, which I thought was reasonable considering we ordered so many premium pieces. And I would definitely recommend Karato Ichiba if you feel like having some conveyor belt sushi. The view overlooking the ocean was also spectacular. For dinner, we headed to a highly rated izakaya called Kirishima. As usual with izakayas, there was a handwritten menu, but this one was especially difficult to read, so we asked for some recommendations, and the chef and staff were more than happy to help. The service was extremely warm and friendly. We started off with a beautifully presented sashimi platter. The akami was lean and tender, although not quite as delicious as this one. And the next piece was a first for me, which was exciting. This was Saury sashimi with some beautiful knife work served with freshly grated ginger. The texture was tender, with a medium richness, and a flavor similar to mackerel but milder. It was delicious. Next was Thai or sea bream, which was even more mild in flavor, but it also has a very satisfying soft and dense texture. And then came a beautiful piece of sweet shrimp, which was as fresh as possible. It was quite literally moving a minute before we were served this platter. It had a very pleasant, dense and sticky texture with a briny sweetness that was complemented by the fresh wasabi. It was outstanding. Next was a piece of torched sawada, or Spanish mackerel, which had a more mild flavor than normal mackerel, but with a similar taste and leaner texture. It was about halfway between mackerel and the sea bream, so if you think mackerel is on the strong side, this is probably a good middle ground to try. Although they were pretty small in size, the uni was perfectly sweet and creamy. And the squid, just like at lunch, was dense, rich, and mildly sweet. I've never tried abalone before, but I decided to try it at this izakaya since I saw it being cut from a huge premium piece. It had a mildly sweet flavor with a soft texture that was slightly elasticy but very pleasant to chew. It was excellent. I also ate these shiso blossoms, which tasted exactly like shiso, my favorite herb. The next dish was a fully picked apart Watarigani, or Japanese blue swimmer crab. This was my first time seeing or hearing about this type of crab. The meat was soft and white, with mild crab flavor, but a completely unexpected amount of sweetness and richness. I thought it would be similar to blue crab, but the taste was much sweeter and much less fishy/briny. It was like the crab had been mixed with cream. It wasn't dry and flaky. It was extremely moist and spongy with sweet crab flavor, and it was exceptional when paired with the citrusy ponzu sauce. I really thought it would be similar to lump crab meat, but this was infinitely better. So much additional sweetness and richness that was highlighted by the provided citrus. This was so unexpectedly delicious. I never would have thought such an impressive dish could come from such a small crab. We also got this vegetable platter which you grilled on your own. It included eggplant, okra, matsutake mushrooms, leeks, sweet potato, maitake mushrooms, figs, and pumpkin. All of the vegetables had exceptional quality and were paired with a miso mayo sauce. The pumpkin was sweet and starchy, the leeks were crunchy and aromatic, the maitake mushrooms were pleasantly chewy and flavorful, and the figs were extremely juicy and sweet. This was my first time to try a matsutake mushroom, and I have to say I really don't see why they're so expensive. It was slightly perfumey with mushroom flavor, but nothing crazy like truffles. I don't think the flavor or aroma justify the price tag at all on this one. But overall, I really enjoyed the charred flavor of the fresh vegetables and thought this was a great side dish to pair with all the proteins. The next dish was a seasonal specialty. This is a Pacific Saury, or Sanma. Its name translates to autumn swordfish, since autumn is when it has the highest amount of fat, flavor, and is the most delicious. Salt grilled is the most popular method of cooking. This one was sprinkled with a good amount of salt and grilled over charcoal to give it an insanely delicious smoky aroma. It was served with some grated daikon and citrus. The whole fish was grilled absolutely perfectly. The skin was thin and crispy, and the meat was so flavorful and juicy. The overall taste was similar to other bluefish such as mackerel or sardines, but more on the mild side. In Japan, the organs are actually left in and have an extremely bitter flavor. They seem to enjoy this, but I haven't quite acquired this taste to my palate yet. It's not the worst, but it's definitely better to just not eat the really bitter part. This was our first time trying Sanma Shioyaki, and it was excellent. A must-try dish in the autumn. We also decided to try some eggplant and squid tempura. Both came with salt and were served straight out of the fryer. The eggplant was very crispy with a light batter, but eggplant always seems to absorb a lot of oil when deep fried. We probably should have seen that one coming, but it was definitely a little bit on the greasy side. The squid was crispy and tender, with the always delicious flavor of fried seafood. Both tempura were good, but all the other dishes were better. Especially the crab and the sanma. Those were easily the two best dishes of the night. Everything we tried at Kirishima was very good or better, and this is definitely a restaurant you should visit if you're ever in Shimonoseki. The next morning we woke up bright and early to get to the breakfast buffet as soon as it opened. Like other Dormy Inns, it had a nice selection with lots of regional specialties. The dishes here included cold tofu, soft-boiled eggs, mozuku seaweed, steamed vegetables, grilled mushrooms, kamaboko, natto, simmered vegetables, fried and grilled pufferfish, grilled mackerel, tamagoyaki, and there was a station for freshly made Kawara Soba. There was also a salad bar, smoked salmon and prosciutto, omelets and fried eggs, quiche, scrambled eggs, bacon, karaage and french fries, huge fried shrimp and pumpkin croquettes. There were also breads and pastries, loaded miso soup, curry, lots of pickles, roasted seaweed and rice seasonings, fugu rice, regular rice, and a beautiful barazushi with tons of nice toppings like eel, shrimp, and tobiko. And for dessert, there were daifuku, cakes, yogurt, and fruit. It was a very impressive selection, and I picked up a nice light breakfast. The fried shrimp were crispy, moist, and delicious, as were the karage and fried pufferfish. These were whole small ones, but they had a surprising amount of tender white meat on them. The salad was crisp and fresh, and the barazushi was excellent. Lots of ingredients with different flavors and textures, like pickled lotus root, egg, eel, snow peas, and tobiko, all on top of flavorful and chewy sushi rice. This was seriously delicious. If this was the only item offered on the buffet, I still would have been very happy. The cold tofu was soft and silky. The sautéed mushrooms were chewy and rich in flavor. The salmon was surprisingly moist, and the pumpkin croquette was sweet with a pleasantly starchy yet creamy texture inside of a crispy fried shell. Kawara Soba is one of the dishes unique to Yamaguchi, and legend says during the Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, soldiers used to cook on clay roof tiles. The modern version was created in the 1960s by an innkeeper named Shinichi Takase, who had heard the old legends. His version is made up of green tea soba noodles topped with thinly sliced beef, egg, green onions, lemon, and spicy grated radish, paired with a sweet soy or suyu sauce. It is then served on top of a heated clay roof tile or kawara, which helps the dish to stay hot, as well as create a pleasant crispy layer on the bottom. It also gives a very nice presentation. The overall flavor is very gentle, comforting, and similar to other forms of soba found around Japan. The earthy buckwheat noodles and the sweet and savory suyu sauce go together perfectly. The grated radish and lemon help to give it a fresh kick. This is a dish that anyone would enjoy. I will admit, although this was a light breakfast, I was already quite full when I began eating this large portion of freshly made Kawara Soba, but it was still very delicious nonetheless. After we got back, it was time for lunch, and we headed to the market for their Iki Iki Bakangai, or Lively Bakan Street event. Iki Iki Bakangai is an event held on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. During these days, the market transforms into a giant food stall area with vendors selling tons and tons of different kinds of nigiri sushi. They have other items as well, such as kaizendans, sashimi, other seafood, and fried items, but the main attraction is 100% the sushi. Huge nigiri are offered for very reasonable prices, and you can pick them one by one, which makes it even more fun. The quality is also outstanding, since everything is sourced directly from the fish market. Each vendor will be offering different varieties of sushi at different prices, so it's best to take a walk around and check out all the vendors first, but the ones with the best prices and selection will always have the longest lines. After selecting a stall, picking my sushi one by one, and walking out to the beautiful boardwalk, this was my selection, with huge pieces of fish, and wow did it ever look delicious. I started off with the enormous tuna takuan gunkin. I wasn't sure if it was one biteable, but I went for it anyways. The rich and flavorful tuna went extremely well with the crunchy pickled daikon and chewy sushi rice. Next was a jumbo fried oyster sushi. Unconventional, but also very delicious. A crispy chewy coating with a massive rich oyster inside. I tried, but I don't think it was actually possible to eat this as sushi. The gunkins at this particular stall were literally 2 rice balls each, and they only cost around $2. As well as being delicious, it was also insanely good value. The first nigiri I tried was a torched nodo guro, or blackthroat sea perch, a very premium fish which was surprisingly cheap here. It was a very tender white fish with a shockingly high amount of richness that was enhanced by the torching. It was outstanding. The green onions and spicy radish helped to contrast the richness. This was a fish I'd never heard of before. Saw-edged perch, also known as ara. It was extremely dense and relatively chewy with a good amount of fat and flavor. There was also a shiso leaf that added a nice fragrance. The flavor and texture really reminded me of monkfish or lobster sashimi. The next gunkin was called golden ika, squid with some small yellow fish eggs and takuan. It was my first time trying this combination, and it was unbelievably delicious. The dense, rich squid paired so well with the sweet and salty popping fish eggs, as well as the crunchy takuan and flavorful sushi rice. It had a ton of different flavors and textures that all complemented each other perfectly. This is a must-eat piece of sushi here. The uni was rich, but much more fishy than sweet, so I don't recommend this one at all. The largest ikura gunkin I've ever seen, on the other hand, was outstanding. Massive briny, savory, sweet, and pleasantly fishy salmon roe, on top of 2 more perfectly chewy and flavorful rice balls. The chutoro was extremely tender, rich, and flavorful. Balance was brought by the large amount of fresh wasabi on top. The unagi was rich, tender, and smoky, with its classic sweet and savory flavored sauce. And the yellowtail belly had its usual initially firm texture that released lots of flavor and richness as you chewed. The last piece was torched salmon belly, which was maximum tender, rich, and flavorful. Torching fatty pieces helps to render the fat and makes the texture feel even more luxurious when you chew it with the rice. I was pretty full at this point, but I also got a giant fried crab claw, which had a surprising amount of meat inside. The texture was pleasantly crispy and chewy, with delicious fried crab flavor. It was fantastic. This was incredibly delicious sushi, and very reasonably priced as well. But what makes it truly special is sitting on the boardwalk under the palm trees with the incredible scenery. This was by far the most enjoyable fish market experience I've tried in Japan, and I highly recommend coming here if you ever have the chance. That was a lot of sushi, but I decided to go back a little bit before the market was closing because they sell the remaining sushi at a discounted price. 2 more beautiful chutoro, and 1 cheek nigiri, as well as a gunkin full of enormous chunks of fatty tuna. You can probably tell just by looking at them, but all 4 pieces were spectacular. Extremely rich, tender, and melt in your mouth. And although this is just the beginning of our food tour in Shimonoseki, it's going to be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you did. My food journey from Shimonoseki will continue soon. Thanks for watching.